Jeffsy review.
Oh, hell no.
The highly anticipated video that I haven't done. Welcome back, my MTB homies. Well, it's about that time for me to do a review. Let me first say, I had a lot of fun on this bike for the last 8 months. I'm gonna give you my opinion on what I think about this bike, obviously. Why I grabbed that more than my YT Izzo, why I ride it more than I ride my Capra. So we're gonna go over about 5 things. Number 1, the suspension. Having 145 millimeters of suspension on a mountain bike, is it enough? Is it not enough? We're also gonna go over the SRAM transmission that's on this bike. It's the Eagle GX transmission, and I'll give you my opinion on that as well. We're gonna go over the price point of this bike and how I feel about that. Then we'll talk about the parts that I've changed, and then give you my overall opinion about the YT Jeffsy Core 4 2024. Let me be clear, I did pay for this bike myself. I bought this bike. I was not handed this bike from YT Industries, though I would have been super stoked if they did that, but they did not hand me this bike. I spent my own money on it, and I wanted to see what it was like to ride the YT Jeffsy, because I heard a lot of things from other people that it's just a great all-around bike to ride. It's like that mid-travel area. My whole goal behind buying this bike was that I wanted a bike that I could get to do all the things in one bike. You know, it's always like a give and take on everything. I wanted the best bike for everything we got here, and I feel like the Jeffsy clicked a lot of those boxes, especially because the travel itself was in between the YT Izzo and the YT Capra. All right, Jeffsy 2024 Core 4 by YT Industries. This is the review, finally, after 9 months of owning it. Number 1, let's talk about the suspension. The suspension on this bike comes with 150 millimeters in the front, 145 millimeters in the rear, and it is a all mountain bike. Do I agree with that statement of all mountain? Absolutely. I really do truly believe that this captures the essence of an all mountain bike, because it's good for easy trail riding and it's also good for gnarly trail riding. You can do both. I've taken it on green blue lines and I've taken it on double black lines, and this bike can hold up. I don't know if it's the design of how this frame is, but I can tell you I've taken this thing to many different types of jump lines, trails, rocky stuff, and 145 and 150 millimeters of travel is plenty for me as a rider. The 145 millimeters in the rear does tend to feel like it's more. Originally, this bike comes with a 150 millimeter front fork, which is a Lyric fork by RockShox. I'm real big on my suspension being simple, so I can just set it and forget it. This might be my favorite fork right now. It feels like it's beefier than it is, and it's easy to dial to whatever suspension type of riding you like. Let me just tell you, the main reason why I wanted the Core 4 is because I wanted the RockShox suspension. It wasn't because I wanted the higher end and the more expensive one. I really just wanted the RockShox suspension, and I couldn't get the RockShox suspension until I went up to the Core 4. Now, I could have bought the lower Core, which was a Core 3, and changed out the suspension, but by the time I did all that, it was the same price. So I just went with the Core 4. Originally, it came with the RockShox Air Shock, the Super Deluxe, I believe, and that was a good shock as well, but I personally prefer the feeling of a coil shock, and that's pretty much the only reason why I changed it out. Part of the reason why I got the Fox DHX factory is because it's a pretty simple shock. It only has 3 adjustments, and that's kind of how I like my RockShox stuff as well. I still got a Fox coil because guess what? It was on sale. Number 2, let's talk about its climbing abilities. Believe it or not, it's actually pretty easy. You can actually do a ton of climbing on this thing. I'm not a great climber as it is, I won't lie. I hate climbing. I'm a baby about it. The only thing I can compare it to that would be any better would be my YT Izzo, and I feel like it's a very close race. I mean, The only thing the Izzo really has on this is the fact that it's lighter. But other than pedaling efficiency, this bike does great. When I've been climbing on this bike, I didn't have any struggles with it trying to get up stuff or long climbs that were just a pain. I mean, the climb was already a pain, and I didn't feel a difference on this bike compared to like riding the Izzo, which is a lot shorter travel. I ride Sedona a lot. I ride the Hawes trail system, and I ride up in Flagstaff, and all those places have different types of terrain. Number 3, let's talk about the SRAM transmission electric shifting that comes on this bike in a Core 4. Now, the transmission drivetrain. SRAM did a pretty good job on this. I'm just a regular dude who rides bikes, and I gotta say, this thing shifts so nicely, but I hate it at the same time. Here's why. Even though it's efficient and it works great, I hate the fact that I have to have batteries. If this thing ever breaks, I'm gonna go back to a regular cable-driven derailleur because I just don't want to deal with it. I'll get rid of this whole setup because I just don't care that much about electric shifting. It's such a pain in the ass when you need to have a battery ready to go, or you're on a trail and you forgot to charge a battery. I mean, I always keep backup batteries, but then I'll forget to charge them, and then I have just 3 backup dead batteries inside the frame, and that sucks. So I don't necessarily want to keep that on there, but I will until it breaks, because if it's not broke, don't replace it, except for all the other stuff that I always replace. Would I recommend it as a efficient drivetrain? Absolutely. Would I say you should buy it and you already have a good cable driven one? I'd say don't buy it. But if you want all the new technology and cool stuff, by all means go buy it. It's not a bad product. I just hate it because I hate batteries and I hate charging things. It's bad enough having to charge cameras and GoPros and all that crap. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. All right, let's get down to the price of this bike. All right, so the YT Jeffsy does come in Core 1, Core 2, Core 3, Core 4, Core 5. 5 being the highest end model and 1 being the lowest end model. I personally don't mind having a Core 1 or a Core 2. The only reason I didn't get either one of those bikes is because they came in aluminum and I wanted a carbon bike. Do I need a carbon bike? Probably not. Would I feel a difference? Maybe. But I'm just a fan of carbon fiber bikes because that's all I've been riding for the last 4.5 years. So carbon it was. This bike was about a little over $5,000. That was the retail price when it first came out. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty bummed out that now it's going for about $3,800 because the mountain bike industry is collapsing when it comes to bikes selling right now because nobody wants to buy them. So it is kind of a bummer. Would I say this bike stock is worth that price, the $5,000? Yes, I would say that. Compared to a lot of other brands out there that are gouging you to death, I would say YT has always had the best competitive prices, in my opinion. You definitely get value for your dollar. At first, I wasn't a fan of the red, but I also didn't want another black bike because I have too many black bikes. But the red grew on me, and especially when I saw it in person, I really liked the way it looked. It was kind of sparkly red. Can't really see that in the video, but sparkly red was kind of kick-ass, so I went for it anyway. But the Core 1s are coming in around, you know, $2,000. It's about $1,000 up every single time you move up on a bike. They also came out with the Jeffsy mullet bike, which was the uncaged version of it. It's like red, white, and silver. Pretty sick bike. I liked it. I saw it personally at the YT Mill in Bentonville when it got basically unveiled, kinda. And that bike was pretty sick. And I was a little bit jealous because the color scheme was pretty cool, but it also came in mullet, which I'm not a fan of, and it also was aluminum, but that bike had silver wheels, which I thought was pretty cool. Number 5, the list of parts that I've changed on this bike. Number 1, the wheels. The wheels that originally came on this bike were Crank Brothers wheels. I'm just not a fan of Crank Brothers wheels. It's just, I don't like the engagement on them, and ever since I started riding carbon wheels, I trust carbon wheels more than I trust aluminum wheels. That may sound crazy, but that's my personal opinion, especially with carbon wheels being a lifetime warranty these days. So it's a no-brainer. And plus carbon just feels better. It's really hard to explain unless you're riding on carbon wheels, but carbon wheels do feel better. Plus, I love the Industry 9 Hydra hubs. Those are my favorite hubs. I have them on 3 different bikes and they're just smooth as butter and I love them, so I had to do it. Also, I changed out my crank to a Cane Creek E-Wings crank made of titanium. The same, if not lighter than carbon cranks, but way stronger. And ever since I've been running those cranks, I'm gonna run those on every single bike I own from here on out. I'll always have E-Wings on there unless something comes out in titanium even lighter, but I highly doubt it. Plus, Cane Creek has a 10-year warranty and you can't beat a 10-year warranty. Oh, in order to make the transmission work with the E-Wings, you have to buy a chain ring from another company called Wolf Tooth Components, and they make a chain ring specifically for the drivetrain or the transmission. Also, I went down to a 30 tooth instead of the original 32 tooth on the chain ring, and it makes things a little bit easier for climbing, in my opinion. As far as the downs, you're not gonna notice it because you're not really pedaling downhill. But if you want a little bit ease on the climbing uphill, go down to a 30 tooth. I recommend that. It's awesome. I changed out the handlebars and the stem. Reason I changed out the handlebars is because white just looks way cooler. The reason I changed out the stem is because I like 35mm stems. I like my reach to be a little bit shorter, and Jeffsy's reach is a little bit longer than the other YT bikes that I own. But I do prefer the feeling of a 35mm stem rather than a 50mm stem. And like I said before in my other video, the seat I changed out just because I changed it out, because it looks cooler when you have a cooler looking seat. I gotta say, this trap door that can store stuff is probably one of my most favorite features about the Jeffsy, because without this, I would have been lost with not having a multi-tool and batteries that I don't have to carry on my back. I can just carry my water bottle and all the things I need right here. But let's get down to my final opinion on this bike. My final opinion is, if you want a bike that can do everything for a decent price, because they're on sale right now, I can tell you that, the YT Jeffsy is it. If you want to ride single track, you know, if you want to do some enduro stuff, it can all be done on this bike, in my opinion. Now, would I say that you should have more travel? I mean, that's preference. If you want more travel, get more travel. But to me, the Jeffsy is the best all-around bike that I've ridden since I started riding bikes. So I think the 145mm in the rear and the 150 in the front is that sweet spot to pretty much handle anything. It will make you choose better lines than, say, being on a Capra or any long travel bike, but I mean, don't you want to make your skills better? So therefore, it's a win-win. You'll get better at riding and you'll have a bike that's efficient to do everything, because let's face it, nobody wants to climb uphill on one of those long travel bikes for, you know, an hour and a half where you just want to blow your brains out at the top. So I don't recommend climbing on a long travel bike, but hey, if you want to do that, and then, I mean, I know people that climb uphill on downhill bikes and they're crazy. I wouldn't do that. I'm a baby. I'd give up. I'd walk the bike. Anything shorter than that, as far as travel, I feel like is not enough to get rowdy. I mean, people can do it, good riders can do it, but I mean, I know people that ride really short travel bikes that are smashing on stuff. But if you're someone like me who's not in the sport to compete and just have fun and don't want to find yourself getting in too much trouble on a gnarly trail, I think 140, 150 is like the lowest you should go. I think 150 is pretty good, 160, 150 is pretty good, but then you start moving up into the enduro line, and those bikes are just a little bit heavier, so I mean, I wouldn't do that. So at the end of all of this, my 9-month review of the Jeffsy Core 4 by YT Industries, 2 thumbs up. I love this bike. I ride this bike more than any of my other bikes. I don't even look at my Capra anymore unless I'm going to a bike park, and I don't ride my Izzo anymore, because I just like this thing. It can handle so much more than the Izzo can. If you're someone who's just doing a lot of single tracks, the Izzo is great, but for this thing, I mean, I'm taking it down double blacks and chunky, rocky Arizona garbage trails that are insane. Dude, this bike does it. So by the way, with that being said, my Izzo is for sale if anybody wants to buy it. I'll give you a real good deal. It's got the transmission on it and it's got some cool parts. Hit me up. All right, well that's it for my 9-month review of the YT Jeffsy. If you have questions, hit me up. Let me know in the comments if you think 145 millimeters of travel is enough travel for you or not enough for you. I'm curious to know what other people think, what a good amount of travel is for their riding preferences. Goodbye, thanks for watching. I'm gonna go ride bikes now. And at the end of the day, bikes are preference. Ride what you like, ride what you brung. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. Just go out there and send it.